Hey guys, welcome back to Intro to Android Development. I know we're in a bit different of a situation, and I hope the spring break has gone well for all of you. But yeah, we're back, and this is lecture 4. So we got a few announcements to make. Obviously, welcome to virtual lectures. We're going to be doing this from now on. We kind of can't go back to campus, so all lectures will be done this way through virtual lectures. They'll be pre-recorded and uploaded to YouTube, probably YouTube premiered, so that we can live chat with you guys during normal lecture time. Um, so office hours will be changed. Office hours are now conducted through. We will have a link on Piazza where you can message us, set up a meeting with us, and then we'll send you a Zoom link and directly have a nice personal little office hours for you, just fixing through problems and going through whatever you have any issues with. Um, in addition, we have oh yeah, Hack Challenge. Hack Challenge is gone now. We can't really conduct Hack Challenge. All our students from app dev are scattered across the globe, so it's quite difficult to pull something like that off. So instead, we are replacing it with a final project to do. That's still in the works, so be on the lookout for that. If any students are still not registered through CMS, we have um, we have talked with the people. No, not CMS, Student Center. We have talked with the people running Student Center about the ad drop stuff for our courses, and they'll be working that out with us. Send us your net ID if you are still not enrolled in Student Center. And now, syllabus changes. Right. So, your last assignment was due yesterday, hopefully, by the time this comes out. And so the next assignment will be due on the 19th. And as follows on the course website, we have just moved everything down a bit. And we should still be able to get to all the material we need to cover in the course. So don't worry about that. Now on to the lecture. Um, this will be quite a bit shorter of a lecture, simply because it's very simple conceptually, but most of the work comes through the code. So Leslie has a fantastic and extremely lengthy demo about these subjects to demonstrate to you guys later. And I will just be going over the uh, conceptual details behind why ListViews and RecyclerViews and how they're used in Android. All right. So these. Uh, I don't know what app you have that doesn't have a list in it. There are very few of those. The camera, perhaps, maybe a few. Most apps on your phone are interacted through by scrolling through possibly an infinite list, and that has become the modern way of interacting with the phone. So as such, most apps have a list in it of sorts. You'll see behind me Facebook, Podbean, and Venmo are such examples. YouTube, your contacts app even is just a list of different views. And so that is one of the most useful and most ubiquitous views in Android. There are two ways of doing these lists, or two pre-built ways in Android of doing these lists. One is called ListView, the other is called RecyclerView. Now, what differentiates those? You'll see behind me that you'll see on the slides that there we have both a ListView and a RecyclerView view from Eatery. In theory, you can create what is seen on the ListView with a RecyclerView and what is seen on the RecyclerView with a ListView. However, the difference between them just so happens to be mostly in performance and mostly in memory and which one to use in most circumstances. So, performance. This is where the difference begins, or this is where the difference really is. List views are old. They are a very old view in Android, and as such, they have been terribly optimized. Um, RecyclerViews are faster in almost every way. They require fewer operations and they have fewer bugs in them. You will see on the diagram that if on a list view you scroll down, your view will be put into the systems recycler. This is not to be confused with the recycler view. This is Java, the Android systems recycler for views. It will take that and it will pop it to the top of the list to be used for the next thing. Now that's perfectly reasonable until it isn't, in which case your checkboxes on each of the views, if you had checkboxes on each of the views and you manually check them and they're not supposed to be checked, when you scroll down one, that recycled view is still checked when it appears again, and that's not supposed to happen. So that is the major issue with still using ListView. They are old, they are bad at memory management, and RecyclerView is built atop them that in a way that's almost better in every fashion. So why use ListViews at all? Well, that's simple. Um, you use ListViews when you want something simple, easy to read, and quick to develop with. Because with a RecyclerView, you need to import it in Gradle. You need to add that. Um, you need to give it an adapter, a custom adapter, which is a class that you write that has its own constructor, a bunch of separate arguments, and has its own view holder and on create view. It is frankly a little absurd. As such, if you want to reduce complexity, you might just use a list view. But in most cases, if it's anything more complex than just a list of text, you're going to want to go with a recycler view, and especially if it goes on for longer than, say 10 views. Yeah, Leslie will be demonstrating all of these incredibly fun and complex things in the next in the demo, which I believe we will now get to. Now, I've recorded my face for you all to see so that we can have a little bit of human interaction in these times, but unfortunately, Leslie hasn't done so. So I have substituted for her an avatar. Enjoy the demo.
Hey guys, welcome to a demo for the fourth lecture. Today we'll be doing a demo of ListViews and RecyclerViews. So this will be done in two parts. During the first part, I'll be going over how to implement a simple ListView, and in the second part, we'll be going over how to implement a simple RecyclerView. So as Kevin might have mentioned in the slides, both ListView and RecyclerViews are very similar, especially visually. The difference is how they are implemented and also sort of how they run on the background. Generally, RecyclerViews are the recommended choice because they optimize the way the backend runs in terms of performance. However, as you will see in the demo, implementing a list view is much more simpler than implementing a recycler view. So we'll just start off with creating a new project. You'll see that we have Java, it's a marshmallow. So for our demo app, we'll be creating a simple tracker for my boba intake. So we actually have a JSON file that's already pulled up. So we'll be adding it to our project. You'll be doing something very similar in your homework. We'll be basically providing you with a JSON list of all the eateries on campus, and you'll be basically parsing it and also displaying the information in your homework app. So we can just create a new file inside main called assets. Go to folder assets, and we keep it the same. And then I'm just gonna paste in my JSON file. So, as you can see in the JSON file, we have information about the cafe I've been to, the order, the sweetness level, ice level, date, and ranking. So since we're creating a simple list, let's add a list view to the layout. Do match parent and then wrap content. Let's also do something like 30 BP. Let's also add an ID. And then we'll be changing this layout to a linear layout. Let's also make this orientation vertical. And let's also add a button. This is how we'll be adding new entries into our list. And then let's also center it. Let's also give it a small padding. So you'll see here inside the layout, they already show you what the list view sort of looks like, so you can see what the text can potentially look like if we actually run the app, as we see here. Oh, that's the old version. I guess it's not running. But if you were to run the app, we'll see that there's actually an empty list, so you wouldn't actually see anything in here. Yeah, it won't update. Okay, that's fine. We can go ahead and start on the Java file. So the first thing we have to do is actually parse our JSON. Oh, I think it worked. So as you see, it's currently an empty list, and even when we press the button, like nothing happens. So really the text inside the window here is just to kind of give you a vision what the list can look like. But obviously we have to populate it with information. So let's parse the JSON. I'm going to copy over code that actually does that. So this is a very simple method that can help us call the JSON from our assets folder. There are probably better ways. Well, there are better ways to parse a JSON. You can use third-party libraries like JSON or GraphQL or Mashi. But for right now, we'll be just parsing it the very basic way in Android. And in lecture 6, we'll be going over the different third-party libraries that you can use. So you can see really quickly in this method, it creates an input stream that opens up our file. We allot the right amount of memory, and then it creates the JSON object or some string. So we're going to create a try attach and let's also create a final list. So if you look at our logo, let's add it to a new window. The first key that we have is data, so we have to first pull that out. So we'll do JSON object data equals to let's do it up here first. So sorry, JSON object to load. Okay, so that's our entire JSON object. Let's pull out the data from the key data. So JSON object. So JSON array. And inside our data list, we want to get the names of all the cafes. Let's do string. We're adding cafe name here. Nice. So let's do something up here where we do ID plus print out data list. And after this try catch block, let's do a log.ps file. So you'll see in the very first line, we basically have the output of our entire JSON file. And this is a good way to debug your code if you ever run into issues on trying to parse your JSON file. And you'll see in our second line, we print out our list of cafes, and it is what we expect, so that's good. So now let's add the list to our actual list view. So we'll create our two objects. And then let me close this. I'm going to pull up our textbook so I can help me guide this activity. Yeah, so you're not expected to memorize how to create a list view or a recycler view. It's actually kind of difficult to memorize it unless you make it all the time. So it's totally fine to take inspiration from our textbook. So you'll see here, there's two parts. There is a list view and there's a list adapter. Basically, list view is a container that actually contains all the different cells, and the adapter manages the adding and deleting of information in the list you actually input into the list view. So let's do private array adapter string because our list is made out of a string. We'll give our list an ID. So now we'll be assigning our list adapter. So let's do list equals and you'll see the text mode takes in 3 parameters. The first one is the context, but because we're inside a main activity, we can just call this. The second one is the layout of the singular list item. We'll be using the default Android layout for the list. So you'll see here you have a whole list of different types of layouts you can use. We'll just be using the most basic one. And you can also use your own layout, and we'll see that when we implement the RecyclerView. String, and the last thing we input is our list. Nice. And then we'll assign the list adapter to our ListView. Let's go ahead and run it. And you can see here, our cafe names have been added to the list, and we can see it clearly. Let's add functionality to our Add New Cafe button. So let's create the button object up here. Okay, and on the onClick, we want to add a new object. Let's just do and then let's see what happens. So we have our list, and let's click New Cafe. You'll see that nothing happens to our list. Actually, I think the app freezes and now it just crashed. So even though we added new information to our cafe list, it's not actually added to our list view. And so the thing, or the method you need to call is notify dataset change. So let's do this. Okay. Notify dataset change. And this will notify the list view that it needs to update itself again. So if we were to call, or we were to rerun, and we scroll to the bottom and click this. Oh, you'll see that now the new cafe names are added. So this is a very useful method for when you want to have filtering in your app, or when you want to have like a search field, or when you want to change up the list or have the list be modified when new data comes in. But yeah, this is a very simple way to implement a very basic list view. As you can see, the actual code for a list view is only about maximum like 5 to 10 lines long. And you'll see in the second part of this demo, when we go to implement a RecyclerView, there's a lot more code involved. Now we'll be going into the second part of our demo, where we implement a simple RecyclerView. At its core, ListViews and RecyclerViews have similar components. They both have the container, which is either a ListView or RecyclerView that shows up on the app, and that contains all the layouts. And we also have our list adapter. The main difference is that for RecyclerView, you're required to use a view holder pattern, and I'll go into more detail about what that looks like in a few minutes. And because our RecyclerView contains more complex data and generally more complex layouts, we'll be required to create a custom adapter and also a custom view holder. So the very first step of using a RecyclerView is to import the library into a build.gradle. So if you go into our Gradle scripts, you'll see two build.gradles. You'll want to use the one that's dedicated to the app. And then inside dependencies, you'll just have to add in the import statement. We also have the import statement in our Android textbook. I think in chapter 4, part like 2 or 3. So you can go ahead and copy it from there. So once you do that, we'll go back to our main activity. Because we have more complex data now, we don't want to just use like strings or other primitive types. We want to create our own models. In general, this makes the app more organized and helps us, just generally makes the app more organized. So if we go back to our boba list, we have a lot of different types of data points. We only really care about, let's say for right now, the cafe, the drink name, and then the rating. So let me create a new Java class. And we'll call each item inside the first list. So in this first list for data, we'll call each item right here an event. So let's call it an event model. Inside our event model, we care about, let me move this to the other screen. In our event model, we care about the cafe name. So we also care about the rating, so private rating. And then I guess for the sake of this example, I'll be creating another object for the order itself. So we'll just call it boba model. For right now, it will be red because we haven't actually created the model yet. And then let's create the constructor for event model. Public event model. Let's do cafe. Right, and let's create getters for all of them. Okay, let's also create our boba model. In our boba model, we only need the drink title. Let's just do drink, and then we can create the constructor for it. And generally, you want to nest models like this. It seems a little excessive now because our boba model only has one parameter. But you can see that it can potentially have more parameters, including like toppings, sweetness level, and ice level. So we want to create our models in a way so that it can be scalable. So we need to add more parameters later. We can add it to the boba model instead of making it more bloated inside of that model. So that also means, let's also clear this out. So let's get rid of this list adapter. Let's close this. I no longer need the button, and also no longer need the list view. Let's just create a recycler. I want to do match parent. So this is our RecyclerView. We want to change this so that it is. And then this array list is no longer a string array list. This is an event model list. Cafe list. So now there's a lot of array. That's fine. Let's delete the button. We can also delete this, and this, and this. That's fine. Nice. Okay, so now we finish populating our event list. So we currently have the data list. We have the cafe name. Let's also set the rating. So there should be a hint. And then we also want to get our BOGA order. So let's open up the assets again. So that means we'll need to get the order first and then the drink. So we can do JSON object equals to order, and then string get. And inside our event list, we can go ahead and create new event model. So the very first parameter was the cafe name, and then the rating, and then our new BOGA model. Okay, so now we have finished populating this. Let's actually create our layout for a single cell. So let's go here inside resources, layout, and we'll just create a new layout file. Let's call it single cell. So I don't want a constraint layout, I want a linear layout. And then I want to make the orientation vertical. Okay, so inside a single cell, I want to display the cafe name, our drink name, and also the rating. So I want, let's just first display cafe name. So width as before is match 10, and height is back content. We have to give it an ID. And let's also give it a text that you can see it inside our window over here. And let's also just change the font size. Okay, for our other two attributes, which is rating and drink name, I want it to be horizontally displayed. Let's create another linear layout for match that content, but this time the orientation is horizontal. we actually have two text views. So let's do two text views. To make it less confusing, we'll call this and we'll call this. And let's make the font smaller. So now I can see it shows up. It's a little small. Let's change this for the next. It's a little small. To make it look a little better, I'm going to add a weight. So let's do layout weight is 1. And this is the EP. And now we'll do something similar down here as well. Okay, that looks pretty good. And then let's also add a small pattern to the top. Do we need a pattern? I think let's make sure that this is all content. And then let's also just change the color. So that way it stands out. Okay, so this is roughly what a singular cell will look like. We won't know how it'll actually look until we dynamically populate the recycler view, which is what we'll create next. So let's go back to our main activity, and we're going to pull up our textbook. So let's see, this is our textbook. You'll see that when you implement a recycler view, the components necessary are quite similar to a list view in that you still need an adapter, you still need a layout manager, you also need a layout, and just a container object, and also the data. So the only difference is mainly the view holder class. So this looks like a lot of code and looks kind of complex, but really this is just general boilerplate code for implementing a recycler view. You're not expected ever to memorize how to do this. Generally, it's enough to just recognize how to create a recycler view and just adapt the most basic code to what you need. This is actually pulled off from the official Android documents. So the main things that you'll need that you see is the recycler view, the adapter, and the layout manager. So let's go ahead and do that. You'll see that when something I want to note is that you'll see that when I try to type out the name, oftentimes it'll auto suggest something for me, and it always prefix that name or that variable name with an M. This is how you're supposed to represent private variables inside Android Studio, and that's just the general guidelines by Google. It's generally good practice to follow this. However, if you find out holds you back, you definitely don't have to follow it. Okay, so I found view by ID. And then these couple of lines, you can always just copy and paste. Generally, I never had a need to modify any of these lines very heavily. Basically, the set has fixed size. Just improves the performance of your recycler view if you don't need to change the size of the container. You also set the layout managers, and you set the layout managers to the recycler view, just like how we set the adapter to the ListView in the earlier demo. And then we also specify the adapter. So you can go ahead and copy and paste these lines of code. I'm not sure why it's confusing. Nice. And then RB is our M manager. And adapter takes in our list. Let's see. Oh, this is our custom adapter. So we'll just call it custom adapter, and it takes in our event. And then RB set adapter. So let's go ahead and create our custom adapter. Generally, this is created in a separate file. But if it's very short, you can also just create it in the same file. So you basically need a constructor for adapter, the custom view holder, and you just have to override 3 methods over here. So we'll go ahead and do that. This code as well, you can also just copy and paste and then modify to fit your need. So we'll be creating our new custom adapter. You'll see that it's red because we have to implement the methods inside here. So let's do it step by step. Same as above, we need our own copy of the data. So event model. What happened? And then for our constructor, we use the public custom adapter. Takes in okay, now we're going to define our view holder, which is just public. The RecyclerView version of the view holder. So in this part, we also need a constructor. In the example you see here, it takes in a text view, but because we have 3 different text views, we'll just take in an entire view, which represents our linear layout. Okay, let's create our 3 text views up here. So public text view. just have to do cafe equals to x dot sorry. Nice, so in here we just make sure that everything is assigned to each other, but we don't actually set the text of the text view until in the method below. So we do it inside onCreateViewHolder, or we actually don't do it inside onCreateViewHolder, sorry. We do it inside onBindViewHolder, which is called when the data is populated into the RecyclerView. But these are the three methods we have to override. onCreateViewHolder just creates the viewholder itself, which is our entire single cell layout. And so we can just implement it like so. I wonder if we can auto create the methods for us. Nice. Okay, so this is what we want. Okay, so in here we're going to do equals to layer and get context. Because we're not actually inside the main activity, we're in our own public class. We don't have direct access to the context, so we can't just write this. If we write this, we will get the context of this class. And that's why we need to call the context of the parent class here. Inflate single cell, which is what we called it up here. And then we just need to attach the view to our view folder. And this is where we set the text of all our text views up here. So we can just do, we called it our custom folder. Equals to, we're also given the position. So this is when we call the data, the temporary data that we set. Position. Nice. And then in terms of item count, we can just do the list. Oh, let's just call it class for now. And then I think we might be set. Let's go ahead and run it and see what errors we get. it stopped. Let's see what errors there are. Resource is not found. It's probably because it comes back to us as an integer and not a string. So we can just do plus. I wonder if we can do integer string. Nice. Okay, that's pretty good. Seems like we need a little bit of padding. This is bothering me a little bit. Let's just do a padding up here. Nice. Ooh, okay, looks much better. And you can see that it scrolls. Wow, this looks so nice. So this is just a very basic example of how to implement a RecyclerView. We can really quickly try to implement the onClick listener for the RecyclerView. So in eatery, for each different cell, we have an onClick listener, so if you click on it, it opens up to a new activity. We can try to do something very similar. Let's go back up here. And I'll go to our textbook again. It's a little, I say the amount of code needed is a little much. Basically, you need to create an interface for the onClick listener, and then you need to implement it inside your custom adapter. So let's create our interface. Let's do it at the bottom of this class. And then we just want to create an onClick handler object. And inside our custom adapter, we'll just set it as well. So we need to change this. And then below in our view folder is where we actually implement the function. So, it'll require us to implement the methods down here. We want to pass in the adapter position, or the position that of the item that you clicked on into our click handler. Adapter position. Not sure why it's coming from. I'll just make this bad. And then we need to assign our view but we need to set the on-purpose node for our view. Okay, that should be enough. And then that means inside our main activity, we can implement our custom click handler. So implement it's going to require us to implement the models again. And generally here is where you would implement the intent, and this is where you will start the new activity, as you see here. For our purposes, we're just going to create a toast. That make toast, it takes in the context of this, the text, copy our indent list, get position, and then we'll just print out the cafe name. So get cafe name, and we'll just make clear class a short one. Right, so since we modified this, we need to import. What did we say we want to import? Nice, and when we click on the cell, the cafe name will show up. Nice, that's pretty nifty. Yeah, and generally that is how you create a simple recycler view. Once you get comfortable with doing all the steps, it's actually not too bad, especially if you have code like the boilerplate code in front of you. Yeah, and I hope by the end of this demo, you understand the difference between RecyclerView and ListView, and hopefully you get a better understanding of why to use one over the other. Generally, that understanding, or generally to really understand why you want to pick a RecyclerView over a ListView, comes from experience in terms of creating more complex apps. And for the homework, you'll be needing to implement both a RecyclerView and a ListView. And yeah, seems good. I hope to see you at our lecture next week as well on fragments.